Oh, baby, Russ, hockey is back. NHL is back. We are one night away from LA Kings action being back, and we have so much to talk about and seemingly so little time to do it. The LA Kings roster is kind of, sort of, maybe finalized. Todd McLellan's extended. We've got a suspension. We've got waivers. We've got cap situations. We're going to make some predictions. I hope everybody gets in the chat, joins in. This should be a fun one. So please, everybody, hop in and let's go. Okay, Russ, we are here. The longest preseason ever is over, and the actual start of the 2023-24 season is upon us, actually live right now, and the Kings will kick it off tomorrow. So how you doing here on this Tuesday night, the eve of the LA Kings season?
Man, Joe, I'm doing fantastic. I mean, tomorrow's the day, big day. I've been saying, one of the more highly anticipated Kings seasons in quite some time. So I'm pumped. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's a good way to put it. I think this is genuinely as excited as I think as I've been heading into a season. That's for sure. Obviously, CJ's fired up. Hockey season, LFG. Howdy, y'all. Thanks for spending the night. First night of NHL action here. That's coming in from Noah. RB, what's up, guys? Happy to be back. Trapper9 finally made it. He's always late, but not tonight. Not tonight. So yeah, a lot of good stuff happening. But I will say, Russ, before we do get into all of what should be a very fun, hopefully entertaining conversation, it would be remiss. Former LA Kings head coach, ESPN, longtime ESPN analyst, Barry Melrose. It was reported today that he is stepping aside. John Butchergross had sent out that note on Twitter earlier. He's stepping aside. He's got Parkinson's. So, yeah, that's a tough one. Our thoughts go with him, his family. He's been somebody I know, speaking just personally, like I was a kid. I was 8 years old in '93. So he was like the first head coach I knew of the LA Kings. Like he was a part of that, like when I was just starting to be old enough to kind of get into it and understand what was going on. And, for a while there, he was like the only guy talking hockey on ESPN. So just always, you can't think hockey and not think Barry Melrose. So it's, it's a tough one in the hockey world today, that news that came out.
Yeah, and it was nice to hear Rob Blake, before the presser even got started today, wanted to send his thoughts and prayers to Barry. Because if you think about it, he's someone who's kind of mentored the guys who are managing the Kings right now. I mean, you think about Rob Blake and Luc Robitaille, that was their head coach for majority of a lot of their time in the NHL. So it's a big part of the Kings organization kind of still. But yeah, he'll be missed on the telecast for ESPN.
No question. And from one former Kings coach, and we're going to start the show off talking about the current Kings coach, Todd McLellan. So we ended last show, Russ, you and I, kind of unprompted, but we started it with, or ended it, with talking about Todd McLellan. He's entering the final year of his contract. What did we think about where he stood? Do we think the Kings were going to extend him? I think you had said that it, not the worst idea in the world to let's see if he wins a playoff series first. But not only did the news come out that the Kings extend him, evidently this happened months ago. So your take, Russ, on the extension and apparently the best kept secret in hockey, the fact that no news got out whatsoever.
Yeah, the Kings like to keep things close to the chest. I remember they did this with Rob Blake, right? And he's kind of like, oh yeah, we extended him. He felt no need to announce it or anything. And they did the same thing here with McLellan. But I mean, I don't really care about them announcing it. It is what it is. I mean, it would be nice for us to know, but whatever. As far as the actual extension, I think we talked about it. That I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised if we had heard about an extension come Christmas time or January or so, if the Kings were kind of doing pretty well and winning some games. as far as it being done right after the season, I guess that's a little surprising to me. I would have liked to see a little bit later on with 1 year left, but the fact that he only got the 1 year extension, I think makes a lot of sense. It's not giving him a long run here or a
Mhm.
long leash in terms of expectations with everybody wanting the Kings to do a little bit more in the playoffs. It's like, okay, we see what you've done so far. Let's give you another year on top of the contract because we don't want him. I mean, going into the season with only 1 year left, that would have been a little bit more of like something to think about in terms of
Could
him
be.
being a head coach. So now that he's got that extra kind of leeway here with the 1 year extension, I think that helps his mentality going in with the organization which is going to be an important season here.
Yeah, I didn't have like that strong of an opinion last week just because I genuinely I kind of like what McClellan's done, but like I can totally understand the fans or other people's point of view saying, buddy, we at least got to get out of the first round here at some point. So I understand both sides of it. And so I kind of think I'm with you here, Russ. The 1 year seems to be a nice little happy medium to where it's not anything that he's earned any sort of long-term extension. But kind of a tip of the cap to what he's done, and give him that extra leeway here of here's your first year now and I his first year with Dubois, and it's like maybe Blake is saying, all right, I want to at least give him a shot at when we have a chance to get like a legitimate NHL goalie next year too. So maybe he's got that in the back of his mind. We'll see. Daniel Hall comes in here. What's up, guys? And as Daniel Hall says, smash that like button. I don't care if you smash it. You can click it. You can smash it. You can however you want to do it. But hit the like button. It really goes a long way for us. We would certainly really appreciate that. Green Hickson hockey comes in. Kings probably have the least amount of leaks in the league. It's weird. It really seems like they're a Lou Lamoriello type run organization, which is not a bad thing. Honestly,
No,
like that's not a bad thing. What do you think of this? This is an interesting comment, and Trapper 9 is not the only one that thinks this. I think Mac hurts young guys' confidence. Any thought on that, Russ?
I don't think he hurts young guys' confidence. I think it's been more of the organization as a whole who's like to be really patient with their prospects. And I mean, obviously, probably Jordan Spence is a huge example, especially this season. I mean, we'll talk about the roster going into the year later on, but yeah, we've seen it with Quentin Byfield, obviously Alex Turcotte too. They like to be patient, give them their development. We've heard Rob Blake time and time again say he thinks the AHL is a huge stepping stone for some of these young players, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, like a thing with McLellan too. I mean, we've said in the past that a lot of the problems that the Kings have kind of faced the last few years haven't been at McClellan's fault really. It's been a lot of it because of the roster that he's managing. I mean, look at the goaltending situation just last year. What is he going to do? he can't just go in there and stop pucks himself. So, I mean, like you said, I'm glad the way you painted was perfect. It's like Rob Blake's going to give McLellan the best chance to win with the roster he has now. And then maybe you give him that extra year. Maybe you see about bringing a goaltender in. Then you give him a real legit chance. But yeah, I think this roster right here is probably McClellan's best. I don't even think it's an argument. This is McClellan's best group of players he's had so far. So that one extra year just buys him a little time. Just let's see how you do this year. And then let's see if you do well, maybe we'll have this same conversation about whether he gets an extension after this season too.
Yeah, I think this is hands down his best roster. I definitely agree with that. SP comes in here. Blake knows Todd's time is ending. He needs time to find a new coach on the down low. I don't know about that, but the reason I threw this up there is Blake. Blake's kind of at some point here. I think he's done a nice job with the roster. We've talked about this. We talked about it last week, but if the Kings continue to fail to get out of a first round or say they don't make playoffs or whatever it is, like at some point, perhaps the general manager's job becomes in question, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That's obviously speculation, but if we, as we've talked about, we're in a results oriented, sports is results oriented. And at some point, you have to have some results. And I think that they've progressed incredibly well under both of these guys, if we're being honest, Blake and McLellan. And I think it was a question that was asked by Dennis Bernstein of the Fourth Period a few years ago. I think it was after they lost to Edmonton the first time, I think the question was posed as, and again, I could be wrong if it was Bernstein, but somebody asked the question about, is it harder to go from a rebuilding team to make the playoffs, or from, a playoff team to a contending team? And I think it was a good question. I actually think at the time, I thought it was a pretty easy answer. And I think we're seeing it. It's to take that next step, to go from, okay, we're making playoffs and that's fine and dandy, but to take that next step into being a legitimate contender, that's a big jump, right? That's a pretty big jump. So, all that to say, I don't think that Rob Blake, I think he and McLellan, maybe not, they're tied at the hip per se, but I think Blake is also somebody that's in this conversation at some point.
Well, Todd McLellan's Rob Blake's guy. That's who he picked to take over. So, I mean, yeah, I think you said it perfectly. They're kind of one of the same. I mean, this is the same group that's kind of led this rebuild ever since it first started a few years ago. So, I mean, you could probably even tie in Luke Robitaille. I mean, he's helping out. This is all a group of guys that have known each other for quite some time, and McLellan's kind of joined them. I mean, even Marco Sturm in the AHL. It's this group of management that have been leading the Kings, and a lot of it hinges these next few years on their success and whether they stick around any further. So yeah,
for sure. And that kind of brings us right into today. Rob Blake had a press conference after practice, and there was nothing too crazy, I would say, that came out of it. But one of the things that was talked about, I see a lot of people talking about the young guys and the younger players, and Blake made it a point to say that it was answering a question. I don't know who asked it, but about the importance of the development of the young players. And he specifically mentioned Quinton Byfield, Arthur Kaliev, and now Jordan Spence and Alex Laferriere are starting to get them into the conversation. Brant Clark, if the Kings are going to make that next step, they need the young guys to make big steps. I think that's something that we've talked about on the show over the last couple of years, with the conversation about the misses so far, or at least the top picks not hitting right away, because you see a lot of teams that win and go deep as you've got some cheap players, namely usually their top prospects, on cheap deals that are able to fill important roles. And the Kings are starting to get there, but I think, to Blake's point, this is a big year for those young players to take that next step.
Yeah, like I've always said, it's like the NFL with rookie quarterbacks. That's like, if you can find a really good quarterback on that rookie deal still and build around them, you have a real legit shot at winning a Super Bowl, just based off how less of a salary you're paying your quarterback compared to other QBs around the NFL. So yeah, I think it's a very important year for some of those prospects. And I believe one of the questions he asked was about Quinton Byfield specifically. And before even the question was finished being asked, he just said this is a big year for him. It's huge. I mean, everybody understands, and I'm sure Byfield understands himself. He can't have a year of production that he had last year, especially in the position he's being played with. I mean, if you're with Kopitar and Kempe's scoring 40 plus goals. Kopitar is going to be a consistent 65, 75 point player. You have to be looked on to produce here at some point. And I mean, I've said in the past, and I've said throughout the summer, I'm not, I guess, nervous, or I anticipate him having a breakout season just based off some of the statistics. He had a really historically low shooting percentage last year. I don't see that happening again. Playing with Kopitar and Kempe, he'll be getting more looks on the power play, especially in that second unit. So I expect Byfield to take that next step. But yeah, he also mentioned other players like we talked about with Kaliev, who's getting a legit look, who more than likely will be back in that spot once he's off his suspension. Jordan Spence, another big young player who's coming up. And then we have Alex Laferriere, Alex Turcotte he mentioned as well. So there are a lot of young players who are going to be looked on to produce for this team and kind of fill these holes, especially with how cap-strapped the Kings are right now.
Was there anything else in the press conference that kind of stood out to you at all, whether it was an answer to a question or anything that he said that was noteworthy to you?
Not really. I mean, to be honest, it's a lot of stuff that we kind of already knew, right? I mean, we could say like, hey, Quinton Byfield doesn't need to produce. Obviously, What's the salary cap situation? Everybody knows we've been on cap friendly for the last 3 months, ever since the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade was even made, checking out what the roster is going to look like. But yeah, I mean, everything not really surprising. He talked about Alex Laferriere. He's seeing everything else we're seeing, which not going to surprise anyone there. So yeah, I thought a lot of the questions or a lot of the answers that we got from Rob Blake were pretty much expected.
I want to shift the conversation now into a couple of things that Blake said in his conference, but shift it into the opening night roster. Okay. First, the first one you mentioned, Laferriere. So he's starting the season in Los Angeles. This is, more than likely just, because of the Kaliev injury, right? Or suspension, excuse me. So do you, because my opinion here is, assuming nobody gets hurt between now and next week, that this time next week, Laferriere is going to be back in Ontario once Kaliev's suspension is up. Do you see it playing out the same way? Or do you think there's a shot that Laferriere can do enough in 2 games to stick?
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about too. Probably should explain like the whole situation, why he's in the system right now, or why he's in the lineup right now. Obviously, we've talked about on end that the Kings are more than likely going to carry, or only be able to carry, 21 players. Arthur Kaliev gets suspended the first 2 games. Have to keep him on the roster in order for him to serve that suspension, so he's not going anywhere. So you lose a skater there, and then Victor Arvidsson gets hurt, so you lose another skater there. So now all of a sudden you're down to 19 skaters because you have Arvidsson, who has to stay on the salary cap. He can't go. He's not going to go in LTIR unless he's going to be out for 10 days. So his salary is still going to be there. And like we just talked about, the Arthur Kaliev, his salary is still going to be on the books. So it's a very unfortunate situation that I don't think Rob Blake expected to have himself in this soon in the season. And it kind of hurt a little bit, especially not seeing a player like Jordan Spence. Maybe we'll get to him in a second. But yeah, for Alex Laferriere, I mean, I guess it's a bittersweet situation for him, because I mean, I wanted to see Laferriere in the lineup. I thought he deserved a shot, and just based off the suspension and Arvidsson's injury, he looks like he's getting that shot, or he will be getting that shot against the Avalanche on opening night. But I mean, I was thinking about that question too, Joe. I mean, we've talked off the podcast, just kind of texting back and forth, saying like, dude, Laferriere looks legit. You've seen it. I've been talking about it for a while. Like, every time I watch Alex Laferriere play, I'm like, this legit NHL right wing player. Does everything, plays physical, plays with pace, has a shot. And I'm going to tell you right now, he has hands. He's got dangles to him too. I mean, I saw him during some of these scrimmages during development. He's walking guys left and right. So don't be surprised when you see him doing that in the NHL, because he's got the confidence as well. I mean, this is a really cerebral player coming out of Harvard. He's played in big games before. He's been with the big club. His confidence is pretty high in terms of being a young player. So, yeah, what happens in these first 2 games if all of a sudden he just starts lighting it up with players like Fiala and Dubois? I mean, Todd McLellan, he said, and Rob Blake too, like, this is Arthur Kaliev's spot. He's not going to lose it just based off his suspension. But man, I mean, if Laferriere lights it up in these first 2 games, what do? You like, that's not a player you probably send down to the AHL. I mean, obviously it's hypothetical, but man, like Holden 92 here says, Laferriere looks better than Kaliev, and I'd have to agree with him in the preseason game. That one preseason game he played in Salt Lake City, that shift he had leading up to that goal, he was
excellent,
heavily involved. Loose pucks, there were 2 separate chances when he was getting loose pucks, and he made the play happen. And Burroughs on San Jose was going after him, hit him with the check. Alex Laferriere responded with a check of his own, with a nice little body check against the board. So he's not afraid to muck it up a little bit. And man, I mean, I think this is a legit player that the Kings have that they found in the 3rd round.
Yes, and I don't think it's a question. I mean, I genuinely think Laferriere is going back to Ontario next week, just because you heard Rob Blake allude to it. We'll talk now about a little bit the roster crunch. You know, he knew this was going to happen. To your point, maybe not right now at the start of the season, but they've been a team that I think has done this, and I'm sure most teams do. We just don't follow them as closely, but they're going to take advantage of guys that are, not that are waiver exempt. And I think that makes their decision a little bit easier. Where I come from, my point of view in that part of the conversation, the whole waiver exempt thing, I'm all about asset management and protecting assets. And I get that as you're building. If the Kings are serious about being a team that's like, we think we can win this thing, boy, that starts to not line up. Because, and listen, maybe LaFerriere is a bad example just because while I just continue to be impressed by him. I can understand maybe pumping the brakes a little bit because it has just been preseason. Let's see how he looks these 2 games. Getting another bunch of games in the AHL is not going to be the worst thing in the world. I've said it, and I've made my peace with where I'm at with Trevor Lewis. I think this is exactly what we're talking about an unnecessary signing, because if in the event everybody's healthy, you now have a potential legit threat on that 4th line that just doesn't exist right now. But again, I'm at peace with that, Russ. I'm telling myself that I'm at peace with it. I really want to get your opinion on this, because, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm overlooking everything here or over analyzing here, but boy, this seems like a miss to have Jordan Spence in Ontario and the duo of Englund and Bjornfoot as your 3rd pair. I understand, right? You run the risk of Englund or Bjornfoot being claimed on waivers. Get it. Jordan Spence doesn't have to, he's waiver exempt, can go right down. I get it. But are we not watching the same games where one of those 3 players in Englund, Bjornfoot, and Spence is clearly head and shoulders above the other 2? And yeah, it's the first 2 games of the season. It's not a big deal. It's the 3rd pair, all that stuff. So maybe, I don't want to like overreact here, but where are you with this? Because that is not play your best players. I tweeted that earlier before any roster decision came up, because I was just like, I don't know what direction the Kings were going to go today, but I don't get it. You lose one of your 2 legit offensive threats. You're only 2 from the blue line. You lose your power play quarterback, the second power play quarterback, because you're afraid of potentially losing Tobias Bjornfoot or Andreas Englund. And not to sound disrespectful, but what am I missing here, Russ?
I mean, Joe, I don't think you're overreacting enough to this, because I mean, I'm right on the same page as you. When I saw Englund and Bjornfoot practicing together, my first thought was, why? Why is Jordan Spence? Why do I look over to the other rink and see Jordan Spence practicing with the Reign right now, when he's been practicing with the second power play unit? He had all those rave reviews playing in Australia. He's been featured on the Behind the Glass, talking about how he just wants to make the team. And now all of a sudden he can't make the team just based off some other player's suspension. It's pretty much where we're at this point. And he's miles better than Tobias Bjornfoot. Miles better. And he's a right shot. So you're playing 2 left shot players together
who struggle on their own left side, to be frank.
Tobias Bjornfoot has struggled on his own on the left side. Now you're playing them together, when McLellan himself just last week said he likes the balance of lefties and righties here. So now you're not even playing. I mean, there was like, we were talking about just a few weeks ago, how it's like, okay, whether it's going to be Brant Clark or Jordan Spence, one of them is going to be in the lineup. And now all of a sudden there's none of them in the lineup. But I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. How is there fear, or why is there fear that a team in the NHL is going to put in a claim for Tobias Bjornfoot? Why is that fear there?
Trapper9 agrees with that. Who's going to claim either, by the way? Go ahead.
No, I mean, if we're seeing it, I'm sure the rest of the NHL is seeing it. Tobias Bjornfoot, at best, is probably the 5th best left shot defenseman in this organization. If he gets put on waivers and gets claimed, cool. Call up Jacob Overari. he's there. I'd probably rather play him over Bjornfoot at this point. I get the pedigree with the first round pick, and maybe the Kings see like there's development. They've put in a lot of patience and time with him. But man, I mean, like you talked about, if this team is looking to win now and you're not playing your best players, whether it be Jordan Spence or Brant Clark on the right side, now all of a sudden you have Matt Roy, who I love, by the way. Obviously, you guys know my Matt Roy love, who's now quarterbacking the second power play unit. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. But man, when you can have Jordan Spence, who's more than likely playing third pair minutes, getting 10 to 12 minutes a night, and look to do a lot more in terms of playmaking ability on the second power play unit. Now he's not even in the lineup just based off. And this is probably only for the first 2 games, so maybe we're getting a little too ahead of ourselves here. But man, I feel like it's just why?
Yeah, but not for nothing. So look at the 2 teams the Kings are playing: Colorado and Carolina.
Yeah,
those teams can move. Those teams can move. Those teams can put pucks in the net. You're going to have to be able to keep pace with them. You're going to have to be able to score with them. And I'm sorry, but that you're going to put a crap ton of pressure now on the top 4D. And again, I know it feels like we're overreacting. There's probably some people listening like, dude, seriously, it's like the first 2 games of an 82-game season. These guys are going to play 10 minutes a night. And I want to, that's where I go back and forth. I'm trying to level this, but it's like, man, we acknowledge how tight this division is going to be. And how is Colorado or Carolina not going to absolutely feast off of a Bjornfoot Englund pairing? I mean, I get the idea of what Englund brings. I get it. I don't necessarily agree with it because I think he really struggles to get around the ice sometimes, and I think that would be really exposed, particularly in these 2 games against Colorado and Carolina. But I quote unquote get the whole physicality thing. So if you really wanted to keep him, again, I don't know who's claiming him, who's on a 2-year contract. And I don't know, perhaps, and listen, this is where I have to acknowledge, like, obviously, maybe they do know. Maybe there are teams that have kicked tires on Tobias Bjornfoot over the last year or so. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe there is a legitimate concern that they don't want to lose him. I find it hard to believe. And to your point, like, I wasn't going to lose sleep over Sammy Fagemo being claimed. Why am I going to lose sleep over Tobias Bjornfoot being claimed? I feel bad because the kid, he shows spurts, right? He's still a pretty smooth skater. Like, I think there's something there that maybe shows sign of competency with the puck, but his decision making with the puck is no good. He wasn't very good in Ontario last year, at least on a consistent basis. And I can appreciate not wanting to give up on the guy, but it's been a few years now, and it isn't close. Like, he hasn't looked the part at the NHL level. And if somebody claims him, then somebody claims him. But you're seeing teams in crunches all left and right. So I don't know. To me, it's as much as I'm trying not to like overreact about it, it just feels like a miss because, I love Matt Roy. Matt Roy shouldn't be on the power play, guys.
Nope.
And Matt Roy would probably tell you that. I mean, but it's a little frustrating because the impression is we're now like window is open. It's not cup or bust. Like, I don't think the Kings are not in a like cup or bust type of season or anything like that. But the window is open. It's like we're talking about winning. We're talking about winning now. Talking about winning a playoff series. You got to get there, and this division's going to be tight. And you got 2 games that, okay, like I'm making it sound like having Jordan Spence not in the lineup means the Kings. That's going to be the reason if the Kings don't win the games. And I don't know. It's just I'm looking at each roster position. It seems you're not playing your best. You're just not, and you're playing 2 of the best teams in the NHL in these first 2 games of the season.
I wonder if there's a lot more to say about the actual risk of just losing, not Tobias Bjornfoot, the player, but just based off the position he plays.
The depth, of course.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So let's say he does get claimed. I mean, Jake Mavarari is the last the fourth defenseman you have, the only left shot defenseman you have in the organization that's played NHL games.
Sure.
I mean, after that, you have like Kim Noisiainen, who's probably not ready yet. So maybe there's an argument there. And I guess there's also, maybe I'll ask you this, like, how much weight do you think they put into it that these first 2 games are at home? You get last change. You can pick the matchups those 2 players get. But yeah, I mean, I'm right with you. Jordan Spence deserves to be in the lineup, and the fact that he has to be out these first 2 games is just so frustrating.
And we should say, like, Rob Blake, he said today in the press conference, the plan was, at least all along for these last few days here, Jordan Spence was making this team.
Yeah.
The situation,
he pretty much said that the Australia roster was hoping to be the opening night roster. That's what he was hoping to look for.
So he said that he was going to make the team, and obviously they had a decision to make. Do we want to risk losing Englund or Bjornfot to waivers, or do we want to take kind of the safer route, move Spence down, and just bite the bullet for these 2 games? I know this is not what Rob Blake and Todd McLellan want.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it, but Blake is protecting his assets. He's protecting Tobias Bjornfot, doesn't want to lose him for nothing. And I think you're right. It's probably as much about the depth of the position as it is anything. So I want to say I get it, but boy, is that just a frustrating.
Who knows? Maybe Saturday, Tobias Bjornfot has 3 points in 2 games, and we're just eating crow based off it. But I don't know if you saw the last episode of Behind the Glass that aired last night. They had the same conversation. Rob Blake and Todd McLellan. They showed them having the same conversation.
Oh, really?
Rob Blake telling McLellan, or asking McLellan, like, we're gonna have to figure out whether we want to carry 12 forwards and 7 defensemen, or we want to carry, or what was it? It was one of those, or 13 forwards and 6 defensemen. They were having that conversation. We'll have to figure that out. So this thought of waiving, whether it be Bjornfot or Jared Anderson-Dolan, had come into play, and they've been thinking about it. So it's not like they were just so right on keeping Bjornfot.
Sure.
This was the discussion that they've had. So I wonder, all these pros and cons have also been weighed by the management team.
Yeah. So again, I mean, it's just a little deflating. You're so fired up for the season. Everything's all the buzz. Everybody's talking about everything, this and this and this. And you just see it. It's just like that. And going into Colorado, that ain't going to cut it. They're not going into Colorado, but playing Colorado is like, that's not going to cut it. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see.
It's only 2 games. I think hopefully we'll survive and go from there.
Yes, and to your point, they're home, so they can kind of control the matchups at least a little bit. So they'll probably find ways. To shelter that pairing at least. Checking in on some of the chats here. It looks like Jared Anderson-Dolan, he was somebody. Trapper9 mentions that they did risk, and Trapper9 comes in again, says he likes Toby, but mostly see him in Ontario. And I don't know what the future holds for him. I really try not to. I don't want to give up on Tobias Bjornfot per se, but man, oh man, he just has shown virtually nothing. To stay. So it's a little frustrating, and I'm sure, listen, for him too, obviously he's trying to make the team. He's trying to do the best that he can, but I did not think he looked very good at all. I don't know if it was the last preseason game or the one before now. I can't remember. But
my question too, just real quick on the Bjornfot thing, is if this was a situation that they thought could happen, why didn't you give him more games? I think England played most of the preseason games, if I remember.
He played both in
Australia, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty
sure.
And then
he played I believe he played the one in San Jose, and then played another one. Bjornfot only played in like 2, from what I remember, and I believe one of them was the 7 defenseman game. So I don't know. I mean, if you're really looking or thinking about giving Bjornfot a look, why didn't you give him more? I don't even know if he got played with Jordan Spence at all during the preseason. I'd have to go back and look, but I don't know. We'll see. Interesting.
Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. So obviously the Kings, they host Colorado tomorrow in what is the season opener. So Russ, we've talked a little bit now about the roster and how that shakes out. Game 1. We just talked about the third pair. They're going to get caved in. What about the rest of the roster? Whether or not and just to your point, you'd said before, so if Arvidsson cannot play because he's injured, they have no other forwards. It's going to be 11 forwards and 60. They would have 17 skaters. That is how they're going to go. So we'll keep that in mind. Hopefully Arvidsson can go. Thoughts on this first game of the season? Thoughts on how I don't know what your overall view of Colorado is heading into the season. We'll touch on some predictions in the future or a little bit later on the show. But how are you feeling about from a win-loss standpoint going into tomorrow night?
Yeah, I mean, opening night, I'm sure we get our first looks at Pierre-Luc Dubois. It'll be interesting to see who they pick to start in net. That's I guess the big topic that Kings fans will be looking at, whether it's Copley or Talbot. So that'll be something I'll be watching for. The Kings have always seemed to play pretty well against Colorado. I don't know what it is, but they match up pretty well against that team. And this will be our first look, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we get Victor Arvidsson because 11 forwards, man. And you look at the third line, Trevor Lewis was skating in Arvidsson's spot with Deneau and Moore. So now you're looking at the fourth line being Lizotte and Grunstrom, and then whoever wants to cycle through them.
Yep.
Yeah, if you're playing with 11 skaters, 11 forwards, it's not the worst thing in the world. I think this team is going to be carried a lot by their top four pair on defense with Anderson and Doughty and Gavrikov and Roy anyway. So they're going to be playing some heavy minutes to start. I don't like we talked about. I don't expect Englund and Bjornfoot to get too much time here. But yeah, it should be a fun game. But these first two games, obviously, it'll be electric with the two teams that are coming in. But I think the Avalanche, they've had a lot of turnover, a lot of additions. What was it, Ross Colton? I believe they signed.
Yep, Ross Colton, Thomas Tatar is there too. Jonathan Drouin,
Ryan Johansson, Miles Wood. There's a lot of new players on Colorado, so I'm gonna be curious to see how they play. And I believe McCarr's healthy, Ranton's healthy, everyone's healthy for them. So yeah, it should be a fun game to watch. That's for sure.
With the exception of Landeskog, who obviously is out for the season, of course. But and that's a. Boy, is that a decor. Makar, Gerard, Devon Taves, Bowen Byram. Good Lord, they just come at you in waves. So this is a game where, I think I'm interested to see how the Kings match up from a center standpoint. Who gets the McKinnon matchup? If I don't know if McKinnon and Ranton are going to play together, but who gets those matchups? How they decide to do that? Because really with the depth on the middle, this is our first look at an opportunity to see. They can pick and choose who they want at home against one of the best players in the league and then figure out the rest of it after that. So I think this is a good opportunity and a good start for, to see what happens. And I just want to say that, talking about the roster again, I counted Russ. Now, I didn't deep dive into any of these. It was just a quick count. So maybe some of these will be at the full 23 by tomorrow. But there were 18 teams with less than 23 players on their roster. So 20, 21, 22. This is not – the Kings aren't the only team. There's a lot of teams in this spot. And you know what? Of those 18, at least a dozen of them were playoff caliber teams, like teams that are for sure going to be playoff teams or teams fighting for playoffs. Because you know what? These teams spend to the cap, and there's a lot of cap gymnastics that goes on. So – I know there's a lot of hand-wringing, a lot of, what is Rob Blake doing? It's 21 players. Now it's 20. It might not be, it's 19 tomorrow if Arvidsson's hurt, all those stuff. But it's like they are not the only team in this spot. There's a lot of teams that are in this position, especially at this point in the season, I think, too, as teams are kind of trying to figure it all out right as they go.
Yeah, especially the salary cap not going up the last few years. I mean, if you're contending and you're not tied up against the cap, then you're probably doing something wrong. So the Kings, they should be in a situation where they're at. I mean, I'm actually kind of glad. Spend as much money as you can. And if that means that you have to carry one less skater, totally fine with it. So as long as you're not giving Connor Hellebuck $8.5 million, I'm cool. So I think the Kings are in a fine situation. I'm not disappointed or angry that they have to go through all these cap gymnastics. That's what good teams do. I mean, look at Tampa Bay Lightning. Look at the Vegas Golden Knights. They've made almost a mockery of the whole situations. And I'm sure the Kings might have to get into that situation too. So the fact that they have to go through all these troubles and tribulations to get as many skaters as they can on the ice, then if that's what it takes to be a contender in this league, then go for it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Spend to the cap, spend. And, along those lines, another place where you can spend your money is at DraftKings, Russ. The NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking new customers up with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game day this October. Perhaps you may be interested on Russ's LA Chargers off a bye, 2 straight wins. They're getting 2 points at home against my absolute hated Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to be pulling for the Chargers. I don't know if I'm going to bet on the Chargers, but I'm going to be pulling for the Chargers. That's for sure, as 2-point dogs. But something to look at. They're +2 at DraftKings -110 as of here this Tuesday night. So get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code THPN. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet 5 on the NFL. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, which is 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas licensee partner, Golden Nugget Lake Charles, Louisiana, 21 and over, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football. Terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. How you feeling about the Chargers, Russ? Monday night at home against Dallas.
Getting healthy.
Okay.
I don't know. It's tough. I thought the Cowboys... I think the Cowboys are a little bit overrated, but when you come off a blowout loss like they did to the Niners, I don't think Dak Prescott is that great of a quarterback, but the Chargers defense has never really looked that great. So I don't know. I think go either way. I think the 2 points is actually pretty fair.
I did place one bet at DraftKings over the weekend. I mentioned to you that I took Anaheim, their over point total, which was 68. And at DraftKings over the weekend, I took the San Jose Sharks under 66.5 points, which was at DraftKings. Ironically, Russ, have 3 futures, all Pacific. So there's San Jose under, Anaheim over, and you know I had to forget the Calgary Flames over their point total of 94.
What was I'm going to try to bring it up real quick. What was the Ducks points last year? What was the lowest? 58?
58. The Ducks was 58.
Oh, and you got under 66 for the Sharks?
I did get under 66.
Wow.
That's 66.5.
You should cash that in right now. That's an easy win.
I think they're horrible. I think they could be the worst team in the league. Then again, I saw the Flyers line up the other day, and they're going to be right there too. But I genuinely think the Sharks are in contention for the lottery. I absolutely believe that. So we'll see. I mean, I'm in on the Flames again. I said that, so it is what it is. We're about to talk into some NHL predictions, but real quick. So there's 35 of you folks that are listening and viewing, and we can't thank you enough. But as I look, we have 13 likes on the episode. There's 35 in here, 13 likes. Let's go. People that are watching, if you haven't taken the time, go hit the like button. We appreciate it. Why not? Help us out a little bit. And as you do that, think of what some of your predictions are going to be for 2023, 2024, because that is what Russ and I are about to talk about. Who do we think is going to make playoffs in the East? Who do you think is going to make playoffs in the West? Who's coming out of the East? Who's winning the Cup? What are some awards? Let's have a little fun here. Join in on the chat. I'd be curious to hear what everybody says. Russ, what's this here? Bake Junts. Great show, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Appreciate everybody.
Yes, OC Steve. So Cal Peterson, for those that didn't know, he was waived, and he is currently in the AHL with the Philadelphia Phantoms. And by the way, I'm pretty sure the Flyers have 3 goalies in the NHL right now. So Cal is not one of them, unfortunately.
Yikes.
Okay, we'll start in the East, Russ. We'll save the best for last. We'll start in the East with the Atlantic Division.
Let's do it.
And the Atlantic Division, for those who don't know, the Florida Panthers, Boston Bruins, Buffalo Sabres, Ottawa Senators, Toronto Maple Leafs, Montreal Canadiens, Detroit Red Wings, and Tampa Bay Lightning. Russ, who's winning the Atlantic? What is your views on this division?
All right, so I'll go from the 3rd seed up. Let's start there. How about that? So my 3rd seed in the Atlantic, I have the Boston Bruins. I don't view the loss of Bergeron and Krejci as a way of saying the Bruins are all of a sudden not a good team anymore. I think it's a big loss. Obviously, you lose those caliber of players, but I mean, there's still a lot of talent there. Pasternak's there. Lindholm looks good. They're really deep. They play really well, and they get good goaltending. I mean, I think a lot of their goaltending last year was just based off of the players in front of him. But hey, you never know. He won the Vezina, so got to give him some remarks there. But I think the Bruins still managed to figure out a playoff spot out of this division. It's a really tough division too, but I got the Bruins 3rd. I'll go. My 2nd team is the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't think that the Vasilevsky injury keeps them out of a playoff spot. I still think they're a juggernaut of a team. I mean, obviously you got Victor Hedman, Stamkos, Kucherov, Point, and even we saw them play today. They just look like they're humming along.
Yep.
I'm always been high on the Lightning. Victor Hedman's one of my favorite players in the NHL. He's so good. So second spot there, and then 1st, I think it's just easy. Toronto Maple Leafs. I think they end up running away from this division. So those are my top 3.
I agree, and I'm the 3rd place in this division is the hardest spot for me to pick because you have the stalwart of Boston, you have the Eastern Conference champion in Florida, and then you've got 3 teams that are like so fun and they're right there. And can one of them, Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit, can one of them crack through? I don't know. I was really close to putting Boston. I ended up going Florida with 3rd, and which is, and I'll be honest, like I'm not in love with Florida. And I may
have a lot of injuries too at the start of the year.
Yeah, I kind of am regretting that pick.
Too late now.
Yeah,
you're stuck.
I said it. It's over. So Florida's my 3rd, but I really think that there's potential for one of those other teams to leapfrog them. I'm with you on the top 2. Tampa, I think I don't think the Vasilevsky injury is going to hurt them so much to where they can't be better than the rest of the division, because I do think Toronto and Tampa, like those are 2 separate tiers above those other teams. I think Boston is still a good team. I do agree with you, even though I don't have them 3rd here. I think they're a playoff team, and I think they're good enough. But I do think those are losses that are going to be really, really tough, really, really tough to withstand. So a couple of comments here. Blake Jones, Tuck Thompson, Darlene Cousins. Buffalo is really talented. Buffalo could be the most fun team to watch this year, just in hockey in general. The way that they play, they don't care if they win 7-5. That's going to be a fun team to watch, and so it just wouldn't be a total surprise if they do make the playoffs. To the Metro, Russ?
Yeah, Metro. So 3rd team I have in the Metro is the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Ooh.
It's hard to evaluate, I feel like, with the Penguins. Like, you add a piece like Erik Karlsson, such a dynamic playmaker on the back end. I mean, I feel like nobody really is going to know how this is going to play out. But man, I mean, I feel like you still have Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Tristan Jarry. They have really good depth. I guess maybe up front they don't have the best depth, but
they did add Riley Smith.
Yeah, Riley Smith is still pretty
Ricardo
good.
Raquel, Jake Gensel.
Yeah, I mean, there's players here, so I think there's a
Mhm.
playoff. They're a playoff team. I just don't know if they're Stanley Cup contenders, but I definitely do believe that they have enough talent to get through the regular season and get a playoff spot. Number two, I mean I think these two teams are going to run away with the division, and it's hard for me to pick the one or another. But two, I went Carolina, and one, I went New Jersey Devils.
Yep.
I think these two teams are the two most talented teams in the Eastern Conference. Um, like I said, I think they end up running away with the division and are the top two. Well, they're not going to be top two seeds in the conference, but end up being the top 2 point getters in the conference. So Carolina, I mean, I really like what they do. They in the offseason, they always figure something out in the
Mhm.
offseason where they get really good players. But they got Orloff, Michael Bunting, just pieces that didn't really seem to fit where they were at, but you just know that they're going to figure it out with Rod Brindamore. And then New Jersey Devils, I mean, man, that team is just so stacked.
That
I
roster
think
is
Jack Hughes.
ridiculous.
What was that?
That roster is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think Jack Hughes is an MVP level season. Um,
Good show.
you add a player like I'm forgetting his name.
Foley.
No, Meyer, Timo Meyer.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
you get a full season of Timo Meyer now. And then not even I forgot to mention Toffoli too. I mean, just let's just add the Calgary Flames leading goal scorer up for really nothing. So those teams are so good. It'll be fun to watch.
The only disagreement I have, and it's similar to the other division, it's not because I love this team. I'm actually somewhat down on them. I just think they'll be just better enough than the rest of the division, is the New York Rangers. I think they're
Okay.
just I'm out on Pittsburgh. Like, I actually don't think Pittsburgh, I don't have them in the playoffs
Wow.
because I think everything has to go right. And by that I mean everybody has to stay healthy and Jari needs to play well. I'm not a Jari guy. I don't think he's that good. And I just think if everybody can stay healthy, then they could be a pretty scary team. But boy, it just feels like there's a lot of risk there with a lot of guys. Gensel's
Older guys.
that too. He ended up
Yeah.
coming back, Gensel, but he was a question mark to whether he's going to start the season. Malkin has missed time almost every year. Letang misses time. Carlson misses time. If I knew they were all staying healthy, then maybe. But I don't know. I just think they're a little too old, a little too fragile. I don't love Jari. So I think they're close. Like, I don't think they're going to be a bad team. I think they're going to be in it to the end, but I got them just missing the playoffs.
Yeah.
So Rangers, who again I don't love, but with Shesterkin, I think their roster is fine. And I totally agree on Carolina, Jersey. Like, I love those teams, and I have them. I have Jersey winning the division too.
Okay.
Just fantastic.
Yeah, they're so deep. I mean, you look at that lineup up and down, ridiculous.
And I'm probably the crazy one. I'm like sort of in on Vitek Vanacek and Akira Schmid. I have
out on Jari, but in on Vanacek.
Yeah. Okay. So and a really one my best friend who's a goalie. We talk about this. He thinks I'm absolutely crazy that I'm, as you just said, you're out on Jari, but in on Vanacek. I don't know what it is, and maybe I'll be way off.
That's Canada's starting goaltender, Tristan Jari. Come on.
That's not saying anything.
Yeah, I know. But so who are your Eastern wildcard teams?
So my Eastern wildcards are go back to the Atlantic. So I actually have 5 teams in the Atlantic Division making it. I have Boston for a lot of the reasons that you articulated. I think, shoot, they go from President's Trophy to you got them third, I got them fourth in the division. So, I think we are saying that those are pretty big losses of Bergeron and Krejci, but this is still a good team, well coached, good goaltending. There's enough there that I do think this is still a playoff team. It's just they do fall, but they're a playoff team. And the Ottawa Senators, like, I had to pick one of these teams. And for some reason, I think Detroit is a couple of rungs below Ottawa and Buffalo. I think Ottawa is just a little bit more of a well-rounded team than Buffalo is right now. And I don't know, like, the vibes in Buffalo are almost too good. And I don't think that you may understand it just not being in this area, but Buffalo. Everything goes wrong in Buffalo. Just ask any Bills or Sabres fans. It doesn't. So I don't know. I think they're really good. I love them. They're so fun to watch. I love Granato. Love the team. I wouldn't be surprised if they sneak their way in. But
the hype is too real.
It seems like the hype is so high to where it's like, man, what if there's regression that nobody is factoring in with any of these guys? Where Ottawa's got, I like their roster. I like what Ottawa's been doing. So I think it's Boston and Ottawa are my wild cards.
So my wild card teams are, I'm kind of with you with the Panthers. So I have the Panthers as the first wild card team. So the reason I have them is like I'm right with you. I think it's either Boston or Florida as that third seed in the Atlantic. And my fifth or my last wild card team is the Rangers. I almost was like I was hesitant to even put the Rangers as a playoff team because it felt so wrong. I mean, you look at all that talent on that team. We got Adam Fox and obviously their goaltender and Shesterkin and Zibanejad, Kreider. I love all those players, but it just feels like something's not going right there. You got the whole Alexis Lafreniere thing. They're still waiting, I guess, for Capo Caco to figure it out, even though he's kind of showing a little bit of flash. I don't know. I really wanted to leave the Rangers out, but there's too much there. Too much there to leave them out. I think they battle with teams like you mentioned, like I think the Senators are right there. The Sabres, I'm kind of with you. That's just I'm in a wait and see mode with the Sabres. Mm-hmm. I need to see them kind of show me something before my confidence isn't there with it. And I'm kind of the same way with the Senators. Almost kind of the same way I am with the Senators, I am with the Rangers, where the vibes don't seem right there. The whole DeBrincat thing just rubbed me the wrong way. I think is it Shane Pinto that they're trying to figure out RFA deal right now with. They don't have him signed.
Norris is hurt.
You never know if Giroux's going to play a full season. Shabbat too, and then Korpisalo is their goalie. I don't know. And the Red Wings, I don't think they're there as much as they want to think that they are.
I agree.
Yzerman's plans just doesn't seem like it's working too well. And the Canadians are on the bottom. Yeah. Washington's kind of they're just trying to get Ovechkin off his goals. But the team I actually really think is most entertaining team in the East here that we're not talking about is the Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm really excited to see what they do. I think they're a sneaky team that a lot of people aren't talking about at the East. And they were one of the teams I really wanted to push in there, but I just couldn't get the Rangers out from that last wildcard spot.
I, for some reason, can't get with Columbus yet. I know you're not saying like they're playoffs or, but and I think that's me. Like for some reason, I'm just not excited about. I don't know why Laine doesn't really excite me, and even Gaudreau, who I think is a great player. But you're right. There's a lot of exciting young talent. So I really want to start to get more on board with them because there's some of the young talent there is exciting. I agree. And it's funny you mentioned the Rangers and you talked about the way you did. I was like, I forget what I think their total was like 100 point or 104 points.
That's crazy.
And I was like, I think I'm going to go under here. I didn't end up pulling the trigger and I don't know what it's at now, but it's like, I'm with you on the Rangers. Something just feels off with them. I don't know what it is, but I got them in the playoffs, but it's like some of these teams, it's kind of a crapshoot in that East. So all that to say, Russ, so we've got our playoff teams in the East. Who do you think comes out of the Eastern Conference and represents in the Stanley Cup final?
So, yeah, this was a tough one. I'm just going to go back to those top teams in the Metro with the Devils and the Hurricanes. I wanted to say the Hurricanes, but I think it's just the New Jersey Devils are just too good. I mean, I had to bring up their lineup just to kind of go through it. I mean, Timo Meyers, Hughes, Bratt, Hughes, Palat, Toffoli. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
It's so good. And then you have Dougie Hamilton.
How did they do this?
Yogosina is so Luke Hughes is their one, like so good on the back end too, and he's a prospect coming in. Yeah. But like you talked about with Vanacek, I think a lot of it will hinge on goaltending. I wonder if they end up looking for a goaltender come deadline and maybe take them. But I think their team is just too talented in the forward group and defensively. to lose in the playoffs. I think they'll be able to run through and make it Stanley Cup.
Russ, look at these contracts. Timo Meyer
Yeah.
under $9 million, Jack Hughes $8 million, Jesper Bratt under $8 million, Nico Hischier under $7.5 million. Like, good Lord, these are steals. I mean, just
Dawson
fantastic.
Mercer had a really good.
Yeah, Dawson Mercer
looked really good for him, and they're young. He's young.
So I agree, and this is tough because I legitimately think Toronto is a legit cup contender. I think Carolina is a legit cup contender, but New Jersey, to me, is like not fair of a team. It's they're so damn good that I just think they're just head and shoulders better than other teams. But that's not it. I do think in the Eastern Conference, I think there's 3 cup contenders. I think it's Toronto, New Jersey, Carolina. Obviously, as we know, if you get in, you never know what can happen. But in my opinion, heading into the season, those are the 3 big dogs, and I think New Jersey comes out of it. I agree.
I think with a lot of the talk will be the Maple Leafs.
Mm-hmm.
What is your thoughts on the Maple Leafs goaltending situation with Samsonov and Wall?
You're gonna really think I'm crazy. I'm kind of a Samsonov guy.
Well, Joe, not to surprise you or anything, but I already thought you were crazy, so it's all right.
I don't know. Like, there's some goalies that, and I don't know what it is, that I just like, you know what? I think he's all right. Like, I think there's something here. So I think Samsonov. I think so I'll say this: it's way better than Matt Murray, Samsonov, and Wall having like they're in a way better spot. And I think that their D is good enough. I mean, obviously, I think they're probably pretty happy to have a guy like Jake McCabe as a defensive defenseman. Morgan Riley, I think, is a stud. Brody's fine.
I don't know. I think their defense
it's
awful, but it's not good.
They're missing a 1.
Yeah.
I think they're missing
Morgan Riley is not a 1.
Yeah, I like Morgan Riley.
Morgan Riley is the Darnell Nurse of the East, of the West, or the
that's
Eastern.
A little harsh. I think that's harsh. I think that's harsh.
Or he plays a little bit better defense, but man, no, I mean, they try to prop up Morgan Riley so much over there, and he's good, but he's not a number 1 defenseman.
I think that's fair. Like I think that's fair. And where you look at maybe the difference when you look at Carolina and Jersey, they have that. They have those legit number 1 D. I don't hate their D core, like Brody, Klingberg, McCabe. I love Timothy Liljegren. Big fan of his. Granted, he's very young, and he's got to like.
He was fighting for time, wasn't he? He wasn't even in the lineup sometimes.
Yeah, because they traded for like 9 defensemen at the deadline last year, so he kind of got pushed out. But I think the D-core is okay. And then obviously they've got some impressive offensive ability, but I think the goaltending. And so again, look at how many playoff teams. There's a lot of playoff teams, including some cup contenders with questions in goal. It's not as if the Kings are the only team that have these questions, right?
100%. Like that's why I don't get why everybody points to the Kings as their goaltending is an issue. I could pick up like 10 potential playoff teams that are having issues in net.
Of the teams that we just rattled off, the teams with steady goaltending for playoff teams, Tampa Bay. Well, Vasilevsky's hurt, so how steady is it?
Okay.
But because he may be out till January, it's a back issue. So, but Vasilevsky, you had the Rangers in? So
Rangers,
and Boston, and that's it.
And even Boston, like we're just like.
Allmark came out of note. So Toronto has questions. New Jersey has questions. Like I think Freddie Anderson's a good goalie, but he's never healthy. Carolina clearly has questions in goal.
Although I like Kochek.
They just loaned him to Tampa.
I think he eventually comes back with.
So do I. Ottawa, Korpisalo's fine, but I don't know. That's not exactly.
We saw him perform in the playoffs already.
And then forget about it.
It's a different situation, but
yeah, but like. I don't know. There's Florida has questions. You're going to tell me is everybody in on Bobrovsky now?
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, because he had a hot few weeks in playoffs? No, there's questions, and we just talked about the East. There's questions in all those playoff teams, just about. So yeah, I'm with you that I don't. This isn't a thing that's just unique to the Kings. So we're on the same page there. Central Division. In the Western Conference, I'll kick this off.
Okay.
I don't know why I can never get with it with Dallas, but I got them winning the division.
Okay.
Probably because I'm slightly down on Colorado. I got Colorado second. And I have Winnipeg third. I think Winnipeg is honestly, I kind of think they're comfortably better than the rest of the division. I don't know. Like, I think there's some teams that are intriguing. Nashville, I don't think is one that we can totally write off. Not in on St. Louis. Arizona is going to be a blast to watch, but I just don't think they're there yet. And Minnesota, they always find a way, so maybe they can challenge and be better than Winnipeg here. But I don't know. I think Winnipeg's got a a deep, not great, but good enough roster to sneak into playoffs in the third spot in that division.
You don't have any wildcard teams out of the Central? I think we've talked about this.
Yeah, I do not. I have 5 teams in the Pacific.
I'm the same way. So I'm actually with you on the first and second seed. Dallas, solid team. Up and down the lineup. And then obviously we talked about with some of the goaltending situations and some of these playoff teams, they don't have one.
They don't have, yeah.
They definitely don't have one. Jake Ottinger's fantastic. And Miro Heiskanen, I think he's going to be a Norris candidate this year. I think he has an outstanding year for them. And obviously with Jason Robertson. Colorado, I was actually just looking at their lineup and their forward group, some surprising names. Like their third line, I have to bring it back up, but anyway, I mean, you have some of those talented players like McKinnon, Landeskog, or sorry, not Landeskog, who's going to be out, Rantanen, Nichushkin. You add a player like talent like Johansson. I think there's too much there to not be close to the Stars, but I think the Stars take it. And then my third team in that division, I feel like this is surprising, but I picked the Predators.
Okay.
And for a lot of the talk, but also like we just talked about the goaltending, I think UC Saros is one of the better goaltenders in the NHL and can end up stealing some games for this team. You still have Roman Josi, who's one of the better defensemen in the NHL too. So that's going to get you a lot of points and a lot of wins. Philip Forsberg. And I really like the way this team plays. They're a really physical, hard-nosed team. It seems like every time Nashville comes into LA, they always play a very physical game. And I've always been very impressed with how they play. And I know they lost a lot in terms of some of their talented players, Johansson I just mentioned, but you gain a player like Ryan O'Reilly, who's really going to kind of bring this group together. I think he helps. And you got some good young talent in Tomasino. So, yeah, I think they could be a surprising playoff team come April.
I think if some of those young players kind of click, then I can totally see it. The reason I went with Winnipeg, it was kind of Winnipeg and Nashville. I went with Winnipeg just because I think they have a little bit more of a veteran-laden lineup. But really, like, Winnipeg doesn't have a 2 seed. They're going with Cole Perfetti as their second center, obviously with Dubois no longer there. So that's something. And, to your point with Colorado, Ryan Johansson's fine, but I don't know if I love Ryan Johansson as a 2 seed on a contending team. I don't know if I love that. So, but yeah, I can buy Nashville. You can sell me on that. So, Pacific.
The Central's not going to be good. I don't think the Central's going to be that
good. And I'm gonna throw credit to Thomas Drance of the Athletic. I'm pretty sure he said it was him that said on the PDO cast the Central Division is the new Pacific Division, and the Pacific Division is the new Central Division, because last year it was exactly the opposite, where everybody's talking about how good the Central is and how bad the Pacific is, and now it's totally flipped, and the Pacific is just full of horses. So, which I thought was
there's a lot of free wins in the Central Division. I was watching some of that Chicago game, and as fun as Bedard's going to be, that first power play unit they have with Corey Perry and Foligno, and I'm like,
Seth Jones.
Oh man, that poor Bedard kid.
That is not a good team. That is
not. Trade him to LA already.
Sure. Pacific Division. What do you got there, Russ?
All right. It's Pacific Division. Let's have some fun. Third team out of the Pacific Division, the Vegas Golden Knights. And this is everybody kind of can guess who the top 3 teams are here. Vegas, I believe, is just the third team. And I don't know. It's hard to analyze and evaluate why they'll finish third. Seems like they always have some kind of injury problems, and I'm not the biggest guy on Aiden Hill. Like again, this goaltending situation that we're talking about, it's always been so focused on just the Kings. I can
Colorado,
run down every. Yeah, in Colorado too. I can run down, but every team in the Pacific Division and say the same thing. Can Aiden Hill repeat for the Vegas Golden Knights and be that player or that goaltender again? Who knows? Look at Edmonton. They have Stuart Skinner and Jack Campbell. Now there's reports that Jack Campbell has got it again and he's had an incredible preseason. He's going to be the number one guy. Okay, I'll wait to see that before it happens. And then you have the same thing with Seattle, Calgary with Markstrom. I mean, Vancouver probably has the best goaltender and they can never figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. This whole goaltending situation that everybody figured points to the Kings being the singular problem in the Pacific Division. I don't buy it. I think I would rather have, I've said on end, I'd rather have Cam Talbot and Phoenix Copley be my goaltenders if I'm paying $8.5 million to Pierre-Luc Dubois. Totally cool with it. So yeah, off tangent, I just think I'll go with the Vegas Golden Knights as my third seed. And, I made a bold prediction for the Kings winning division. So I'm going to stick with that bold prediction.
Might as well.
Pick the King. Yeah. Hey. And I don't even think it's that bold. I don't think it's that far-fetched to say that the Kings will win the division. They could have done it last year with mediocre, not even mediocre goaltending, with terrible goaltending to start the year for the first couple months. And then they just went on this tear and got hurt for the last 10 games or so, fell a little bit, and then they fell to the third seed. So the first seed was pretty close to the taking for a little bit there. And I think if they could just tread water in net for a little bit, they'll be able to win a lot more games and break their franchise record in points. So I got the Kings first. I got the Oilers second. I think it ends up being pretty close with those top three teams, but I'm going to go with LA as winning the division.
I agree with those are the top three teams in the division. But what's funny is it just never plays out that way. Somebody's coming out and somebody new's going in. It just never works out that cleanly. But I actually agree with you. I have Vegas third, if only because, to your point, they've got some Mark Stone's an injury risk waiting to happen, and that's not insignificant. He's arguably their best player. Will this be? I actually tend to think it will be the first healthy season of Jack Eichel, and I think we're going to see a monster year from him. But I agree. I think there's maybe a hint of a little Stanley Cup hangover. I think they're a really good team, and if they win this division, it's not going to surprise me. But I picked them third because I think there's some injury concerns with some of their key players. Second, I had LA, and if only because I think Edmonton wins the President's Trophy. I just think they're that good. And maybe, you know what, as I talk through this, because the Pacific is so good, maybe that hurts Edmonton's run at winning the President's Trophy. But I think Edmonton can steamroll through a lot of this season. I don't mind Skinner. I'm not a Campbell guy at all. I thought Skinner actually was kind of quietly pretty good last year. He kind of ran out of steam toward the end of the year, but he was a rookie. He was in the Calder voting. I think he should have been. Not should have won it, but I think he was worthy enough to be in the discussion. And I think, he's a young goalie that with that time under his belt, he got some playoff time, then I think that'll help him. So I think if Edmonton's smart, they'll lean to Skinner. But Campbell's the one with the big contract. So, so Edmonton, LA, Vegas is my 1, 2, 3. We both have 5 teams from the Pacific making it. So I cannot wait to see where Calgary finishes for Russell Morgan. Do they make the playoffs, Russ? Who's your wild cards?
The Flames do make the playoffs in my predictions here. They do. They're the second wild card team, so they barely sneak in here. But it feels like everybody's kind of pointing toward the Kraken, Flames, and the Canucks as being those 3 teams that are vying for these 2 wild card spots. So I have the Flames and I have the Kraken making it. I don't know or think there's that much of a drop off actually from the 3rd seed in the Pacific to the Seattle Kraken. I actually was close to putting the Kraken. Yeah, I was close to putting the Kraken 3rd. To be honest with you, I really like this team. I think they're coached really well with Dave Haxtell. I'm a huge fan of Matty Beniers, Burakovsky. A lot of these players kind of figured out. Ellie Tolvanen was a sneaky pickup last year, and I don't know. I like the way the Kraken play. It's not like a superstar elated team, but they play really cohesively and they always seem to figure it out. And the thing with the Flames, I don't know. Maybe you talked me into it, so I decided to put them in there. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just more or less the process of elimination. I'm never high on the Canucks.
Yeah.
I don't get it with them, and then the Sharks and Ducks are just going to be terrible. So let's put the Flames in there. Why not?
I would extend your, you said you can maybe even the fourth team. I really think the top 5 in the Pacific are really good. Like,
Yeah,
I think Calgary's a really good team. I think when you look at last year, they had, I think it was 31 goal losses. You can't do that if you tried. They were like statistically one of the most unlucky teams in the league last year. And now I do wonder, because I have them making playoffs. They're the first wild card. Seattle's the second wild card for a lot of the reasons that you just said. But I do think Markstrom, I don't think he's going to be up for like the Vezina or anything like that. But I think he has at least a bounce back season from what he had last year.
okay.
I imagine, I think we're going to see Dustin Wolf at some point with the team. But I think what the Calgary Flames needed last year was an injection of youth. And I don't know if Daryl Sutter was all that excited about injecting youth into the roster. And I think they're going to have that some of those young guys get a shot. And I think that I think they're going to play Jonathan Huberdeau in his actual position as a left winger, not playing on the right side where Sutter had him. You inject somebody like Coronado into the lineup. I know Peltier he's hurt on injured reserve. That sucks. That is a bit of a loss. But I think, Lindholm's still here. Backlund's re-signed. I'm a Mangiapane guy. I think it's reasonable to expect, again, I don't think Huberdeau's getting 100 points, but I don't think he's getting like 50 either. So I think it's reasonable to expect bounce backs from Huberdeau and Kadri. I still love the decor. Love Mackenzie Weegar. I think Hannafin and Anderson are studs. Tanev and Zadorov rounded out nicely. Like, I think that's a really good D4. I didn't even mention Oliver Shillington. Like, I still think there's a lot of good players on this roster that I think needed a little bit of a different voice. And so I think that the Flames are going to be back in the playoffs. And if they're not, I'm going to lose more money on the Flames this year. So
I think it was like the Flames, Canucks, and maybe I would say the Kings too are 3 of the more interesting teams in the NHL in terms of how they play together. The Kings, obviously, with their huge addition with Pierre-Luc Dubois, how's he kind of going to fit in the lineup? Yep. Calgary, obviously, Huberdeau had a down year last year. He's getting paid $10.5 million this year, so he's going to have to produce, or else, they're not going to have that excuse of it just being Daryl Sutter issue. So I agree with you. I think they needed a new voice. Matthew Coronado, I think, is a great addition. Yeah. Line mate of Alex Ferrier in Harvard, so they kind of fed off each other a little bit. They played really well, so I think Coronado is a good injection there. The thing with Calgary, I'm not as high on their defense as you are. Okay, I think they're good. I think Uyghur's really good. Hannafin, okay. I don't know. Anderson, I don't know. I feel like they're like good system defensemen, but I never really got much more out of them than that. And in terms of goaltending, I agree. I think the sooner they can get rid of Dan Vladar and bring in Dustin Wolf, they'll be fine. But I've heard rumors that the Kings should trade for Vladar, which makes no freaking sense to me.
I was literally just about to say that. I don't know where I heard this now. I don't know, but I heard or read. I don't remember now where it came from.
I don't want the Kings to trade for any goaltender.
No,
until maybe the deadline, and then even then, let's figure it out.
Yeah, but, if Vladar, if you're talking about Vladar, just roll with what you got, because it's the same stuff.
Something's gone terribly wrong if Dan Vladar is going to be the savior here for the Kings.
Yeah, what are we doing here? So I don't know. Yeah, but I think the Flames are back. It was a question that came in from Al Smith. about Tyler Toffoli was their leading scorer. Who replaces him? Listen, I think this is a really good question, but I think the depth of the Flames is what makes them so strong. I think Kadri's better. I think Huberdeau is better. I think you mentioned Coronado. I was high on Peltier coming into the season. I don't know what his injury is. I know he's LTIR, so he's been out for a bit. Sharon Govich is not a nothing. He came over in the trade from New Jersey. He's not Tyler Toffoli. He's not going to score 30 goals. He's not a big goal scorer, but like this is a capable third line type of player in Sharon Govert. So I like him as a player. So I just think the depth of the team plus the D-core, which I'm a big fan of, I think the whole of the roster, I think is still strong. It's still strong.
Like you mentioned, everything that could go wrong with the Flames went wrong last year.
Yeah.
Huberdeau had a down year. The team just never really was cohesive. Goaltending wasn't there. So yeah, that's why I think it'd be surprising if they didn't end up making the playoffs.
Well, so, they still managed despite all that. Didn't they miss the playoffs? But like they were close. Right.
They were like 2 points, I think.
Yeah,
it was like right there.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing almost with the Canucks, right? You're low on. Obviously,
so funny when I did the Hockey Podcast Network, we did the Pacific Division preview. I actually talked about the Canucks and the Ducks in the same sentence.
Wow. Okay.
I am and I love Thatcher Demko, as you know, and I think where that separation could come between Vancouver and Anaheim is I think that Vancouver. They have some more established players, obviously, like Elijah Patterson's a stud. They've got some guys that are a little bit more established. But I love Demko. I think he's a big difference maker. Like you said, he's probably the best goalie in the division. I can't get with it. I just can't get with this roster. I don't know what they're doing. And didn't they just say they're taking fielding offers for Connor Garland?
Yeah.
I'm missing something.
I think he requested a trade, or I don't know.
Great timing, by the way. The season starts tomorrow. What we're doing this now?
The new GM, the Rutherford is in there. Like, bro, come on.
Now you do this. The D-core, I'm not in on this D-core. Like, I like Quinn Hughes, obviously, really good player. But what else am I getting excited about on the blue line? Tyler Myers? No. Philip Roenick? Carson Soucy?
Carson Soucy is a third pair guy on a good team.
I just don't think Vancouver is that good. I think they're going to require Thatcher Demko to really bail them out and keep them in games. I think they're on the downswing, and we definitely don't see eye to eye. I think Anaheim is a sneaky, and when I say sneaky, I've said this before. Like I think they finish with like almost 80 points, like 70, which is still bad, mind you. I want to acknowledge that I don't think this is a good team, but I think they're getting really close, and I think they could be a team that is sneaky competitive, and I think that they could be like in a similar spot to where Vancouver is.
Yeah, 80 points is pretty much a 500 team. So,
and I'm saying that they may not get there. I'm acknowledging that they may not be a 500 team.
Yeah, from what I've seen with the Ducks so far, I think the thing with the Ducks is I feel like, which is good, their new coach, I think is a great hire by them because he's really trying to instill two-way, 200-foot hockey with this team. And those players desperately need it. I mean, I'm looking at you, Trevor Zegras. And I heard, what was it? I saw an interview. The first practice that Zegras had with Cronin is, I don't know if you saw the video, but he threw his stick to the corner. He put Zegras in the circle in the faceoff dot, took his stick and threw it to the corner. Said, you're not even going to skate with the stick right now. You're going to play positional defense right now. This is what we're going to practice. And I was like, that's exactly what Trevor Zegras needs. He needs a slap on the behind saying, hey, you're not just going to be doing, which I get it. Do your fancy stuff, which the team needs. You need some scoring, but that's not all you're here to do. You need to be playing a full 200-foot game. And there isn't that Ryan Getzlaf there anymore to teach him. So Greg Cronin has to come in and teach him how to do it. And I'm the things that I'm hearing so far out of Anaheim are good in terms of they're trying to teach Zegras that game because he's a big part of their
Oh,
team. And I'm really high on McTavish. I think McTavish is really good. They have some really good defensive players. But man, I mean, some of the games I've watched Gibson play, he just was out of there
Russ,
so bad.
yeah, Russ, Gibson's the problem here. Like,
He looks
there's so
bad.
much.
Well, they have Lucas Dostal too, who actually looks pretty good.
I get a little hung up here. There's a lot of people that talk about John Gibson and John Gibson, like Buffalo, was Buffalo going to get Gibson, or the Kings should go get John Gibson. Like, John Gibson's not that good, guys. I don't know what all this talk is about John Gibson, because I just don't think, like, yeah, the Ducks have been really bad, like really bad the last couple of years, but I don't think that Gibson, we can just write off the fact that his numbers have been bad because the Ducks have been so bad. I don't think Gibson is that good of a goalie. So, like, especially at $6.4 million for the next 4 years, not a shot am I going to have any interest in him whatsoever. I don't think he's that good. And like, yeah, like, look at the talent that's on this team. Troy Terry, Zegras. I've always liked Silverberg. I think he's not that he's like this great player, but he's just a solid guy. You mentioned McTavish, young player. I know Leo Carlson's hurt to start the season, but boy, do I like to see. I just see Anze Kopitar when I watch this kid play. I love him so much. And the D, I get so excited with the D. I mean, I've always liked Fowler the way he plays. Jamie Drysdale, I'm excited about. Like, and I think somebody, like, when I look at a team like this is the type of team that needs a Radko Gudas and a Killorn. These veterans, the Ryan
Killorn
Strome.
is a huge loss for them to start the year.
It is. These are the guys that are like veterans that this type of young team needs, and that's where I buy some of that stuff. It reminds me of the Kings years ago with Stoll and Green, some of these guys coming in. So this is a team that, like, they're not far. I don't think they're very far.
They're gonna get better as the season goes on. They're gonna start off terrible. I mean,
just not too like bank. I need them to bank some points here for my over.
just tread water for a little bit but yeah, I think they'll have a really rough start to the year. New coach, new system, getting acclimated. Obviously, Jamie Drysdale's just getting into camp. Trevor Zegras showed up late. So, but yeah, I think they'll get better once they get more comfortable with their new coach and
agreed
and chemistry with the young players.
I think that's reasonable. All right, so I think we had all the same playoff teams in the West, with the exception of you had Nashville, I had Winnipeg. Who is winning the West and taking on the team that we both have, New Jersey, in the East?
So the Western Conference Final will feature your LA Kings and the Dallas Stars.
Ooh,
and you know what? Fuck it. Let's pick the Kings to win out of the West. I'm going to say once again, maybe I'm a little bit homer. Maybe my bias is showing. But, man, I mean, this is the best roster that the Kings have had in years. I'll even say this could be a better roster than they had when they won the Stanley Cup. I'll say it. I mean, you look up and down the lineup, you look at their center group, could be tops in the NHL. That's how deep they are. And a lot of it, like everybody will say, and they'll point to the goaltending situation, which I get. It's just kind of an unknown, this situation. But who knows? Maybe it does work out. Maybe Cam Talbot and Phoenix Copley just kind of float through the entire year, get him to a playoff spot, get him that top of the division, and then Cam Talbot just turns it on at the playoffs. Or maybe they trade for a goaltender. Who knows? But I think this team is way too talented to not at least make a run in the Stanley Cup, or even try to vie for a Stanley Cup and lead the Western Conference. So I'll pick the Kings.
The good thing for both of us is, because of where we have the division, is they don't play Edmonton in the first round.
Yeah, so exactly. We're there. We made it.
They should at least get out of the first round, and then maybe we're both saying somebody knock off Edmonton, so they're not going to play them in the second round either. I have Edmonton. I had them last year though, and like that series with Vegas was. I think the more you probably look at the Western Conference playoffs and you see what that Vegas and Edmonton series, like, I don't think we're too far off saying if LA can find a way past Edmonton, they could go. But boy, Vegas was so good too. I think Edmonton is. I'm higher on the goaltending because I don't like Campbell, but I do like Skinner. I think Skinner in his second full year, I'm not buying. I heard the same things. I'm not buying the reports that Campbell's back. I don't know. I don't think so. So it's just, will they lean on him? But I think that addition of Matthias Ekholm in playoffs or at the deadline last year is so big. Now they could go and screw this up and don't give him those minutes. Like, it should be Matthias Ekholm playing top pair minutes, not Darnell Nurse. And I think if Darnell Nurse can get knocked down to playing like second pair minutes, I think Darnell Nurse becomes a way more effective player. He's being asked to do too much, and it's just, they gave him the contract. It is what it is. I'm not going to blame him for signing it. I would have signed it too, but like, he's not a $9.5 million guy, and he's not a top pair blue liner. I don't think he's bad though. Like, I think he's a fine middle pair. Shouldn't be making that much money, but he is. But if they can adjust the time on ice to where Ekholm is shouldering that load and take a little bit off of Nurse, I think that lengthens that a little bit. And boy, I think there's going to be a coming out party. I don't think people are ready for. I mean, the Kings saw it. The Kings saw Evan Bouchard and what he torched them in the playoffs last year. But the league is going to learn about Evan Bouchard. And I think everybody's going to get a coming out party from Philip Broberg too. I'm a really big Broberg fan. He's a really good team. Okay. Yep. I think the back end's good. I know the depth is a question in the forward group. Like, is the bottom six good enough? And I think that's a fair question. But I think that their top is so good. And I think that they can, look at what they did last year at the deadline. They went and got Bukestad, which really bolstered their bottom six. And like, the only thing that stopped them was Vegas. And Vegas was dynamite. Like, I think Edmonton is I think they're primed. I think they're ready. I think this is their season. I think they can win the President's Cup. I think that's a possibility. And I think they're the cup favorites for me. So I guess there you go. I have Edmonton in New Jersey and playing for the cup, and I've got Edmonton winning the cup.
Okay.
How about you? So you have LA and New Jersey, a rematch from
I do. 2012, okay. Yeah. And I guess I'll leave my bias at the door. I've gone this far, but I mean, the New Jersey Devils
they're good.
They're too good. It's just, I have to bring up that roster again. Let me bring up Cap Friendly to look at this lineup because it is ridiculous. I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but you got Meyer, Hughes, Pratt, Heischer, Palat, Foley, Dawson Mercer, Alexander Holtz. Maybe he figures it out. Yep. Thomas Nosek, Chris Tierney. A lot of really depth, solid players. A lot of players that have been there before too. And then defensively, Hamilton, Marino, Siegenthaler, Colin Miller, Brendan Smith, Kevin Ball, Luke Hughes. Man, I don't know who beats this team in a 7-game series. I'm sure they'll add even more pieces because they even have salary space too. They have cap space to add more.
And everybody's signed long term. Like, the only UFAs they got are Toffoli, which they just got anyways in an acquisition. Thomas Nosek, they're not going to lose any sleep over. Colin Miller and Brendan Smith are easily replaceable guys on the back end. Like, they don't even have anybody that they're going to lose. It's crazy.
They have 23 skaters on their roster, and they have $1.67 million in cap space. So that could turn into even more of a piece at the deadline. Maybe they pick up somebody else. So, I mean, I just, like I said, I just don't know who beats the Devils in a 7-game series. So I'll pick them to win the cup.
Maybe Thatcher Demko finds his way to New Jersey.
I think and I think a lot of Kings fans would be happy with the Stanley Cup final. I think that would be just
absolutely
okay. Yeah,
absolutely. So let's switch gears to some individual awards, Russ. We'll start with the Calder. Do you think there's anybody other than Bedard that wins it? I know you're very high on Fantilli.
What was that?
You're very high on Fantilli. I know that.
Yeah, I love Fantilli. I think he'll be great, especially with the team he's playing on in Columbus. I think Bedard ends up winning it. To be honest with you, if I was putting money on it, I would just throw a few bucks on Logan Cooley. Sure. You never know; things happen. He's got obviously lower odds than Connor Bedard, so maybe you win a little bit more money there. And I think Cooley has shown a little bit where he could outscore Connor Bedard, especially with the team he's playing on. He's got definitely more talent playing around him.
Yeah,
I mean, like when I was watching the Chicago game, it's just there's nobody there. Taylor Hall that's it. So I don't know. You got Cooley playing with Michelli, Clayton Keller. Yeah. So I don't know. I think Logan Cooley will be an interesting candidate, but I'm picking Bedard.
Agreed. I think if there was a name that I would throw out there other than Bedard, if Buffalo makes playoffs, Devin Levi could have a lot to do with it.
Hey, with my boy Trevor 9 here, could I find some odds on Alex Ferrier? Is there odds anywhere for him? if he was legit getting a full season, I don't know. I'm not going to say it.
A full season next to Dubois and Fiala, no less.
Exactly. I don't think of a rookie's being put in a better situation than him.
Seriously, Lady Bing.
Lady Bing, that's a tough one.
You know, it's a tough one. Let's just say Andre Kopitar.
Yeah, let's say Kopitar wins it again. He's done it twice. Let's pick him again.
So Bergeron is no longer around. Mm-hmm. So the Selke goes to Russ.
The Selke will go to. I'm going to pick Jordan Staal in Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think if it wasn't Bergeron last year, it probably was Staal. As much as maybe Kings fans wanted it to be Kopitar, I thought Staal had a great year. And the system that he plays in just really helps him. His defensive metrics, too. They don't give up a lot of shots there. They're a heavy shot suppression team in Carolina. So, yeah, Jordan Staal. Like I talked about earlier, I think it's Carolina and New Jersey, 1-2. So I think a lot of that will hinge on their performance in the regular season and how productive Jordan Staal is too.
I like the shout there. I'm actually going to go a little bit different. I think Nico Hischier could be the next guy to have just win a run of Selkies. I love this kid. I think he's somebody that is at least going to be in this discussion for a long time. But we have to give a shout to our guy, Andre Kopitar, who's been right there with Bergeron over the years. So
I'm going to at least be a finalist, maybe.
Oh, I would hope. I would hope. I'm going to pull for Kopitar, but obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. This is his chance.
Yes. Let's go to Jack Adams.
Hey, and also, Philip Deneau.
Yeah. Deneau, with all these awards, there almost has to be production with them.
Yeah,
which is weird. And so Deneau is never going to get the respect that he probably should. But yes, Philippe Deneau is obviously a good show. Coach of the year, Jack Adams. Who do you think, Russ?
Ooh, Coach of the year. I'm going to go with. I want to say McLellan so bad, but
hey, if they win the division, if you predict them to win the division, he's gonna get he'll be in the conversation.
He has to. I mean, I would have thought he'd be in the conversation 2 seasons ago when they were missing everybody on the roster and they still had a 99-point season, but that didn't happen, and that's an argument I'll have with somebody else another day. But as much as I want to say McLellan, I'm looking at my playoff picks. I think the one surprising team I picked was the Nashville Predators.
Yep.
So I'm going to go Andrew Brunette.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Brunette.
Along those same lines, Russ.
Okay.
Ryan Huska of the Calgary Flames is going to be is my coach. He steadies the ship, he writes it, and he gets the Flames back into playoffs, and he wins Coach of the Year.
That'll be the story, at least in Calgary, right? If they turn it around, Huberdeau is back to Jonathan Huberdeau. Everybody's going to look to the coach. Say, look at what Ryan Huska's done. So yeah, that makes all the sense in the world.
But let's be honest: if New Jersey or Edmonton run away with the President's Trophy, it'll be Lindy Ruff or Jay Woodcroft. Yeah. But have some fun. The Norris. There's a lot of good young defensemen in the league right now. Norris Trophy. Russ.
Matt Roy. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
As much as he deserves it, doesn't get the credit. No. I think this is Miro Heiskanen's year to shine. Man, he's so good. And if he was playing anywhere else besides Dallas, he'd be Erik Karlsson level. I mean, he's just a great player. a lot of Dallas's success is banked on not just Jason Robinson, not just Jake Ottinger, but a lot of it is banked off of Miro Heiskanen, because I think he's one of the best defenders in the NHL. And Cale Makar is great. I think he's the best. I think he's the best. If I needed to pick a best D man in the NHL, it's Cale Makar.
Yep.
But I think in terms of just an overall regular season, I'm going to pick Heiskanen.
So many good choices. And I
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it was between Heiskanen and my pick was Rasmus Dahlin. But I love Miro Heiskanen. I think he's a favorite to win this award for probably a while here coming. But man, Rasmus Dahlin last year was his breakout. He settled in. I love this kid. He just signed his huge deal, 8 years, 11 per. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that deal, Russ, but I think Rasmus Dahlin is in this class of incredibly good young defensemen.
Absolutely. He's my third, I guess, and finalist of this trio. And in terms of the deal, I thought absolutely sign, done.
Yep, whatever,
million,
right?
Worth it. Yeah.
I mean, I figured he'd get 10. So, okay, 11. I'm not going to lose sleep over at his age and how good he is.
He's 22, I think, 23. Still very young.
20. Yeah, I just think he's so
yeah. You have him till he's what, 31, 32 years old. That's a no-brainer.
They're just rich with him. Power, Samuelson. That's a good looking decor there. The Vezina Trophy, Rasa.
Ooh. Vezina Trophy. Oh man,
I'll tell you. You let it stew for a second.
Okay.
And I'm going with, because I picked similar to what you said about Nashville making playoffs. I said I'm going with Connor Hellebuyck because I think, and maybe this could be an argument for you actually too. Now that I think about UC Saros, like I think Winnipeg's roster is fine. I don't think it's great. I just think that they're good enough. And then when you add a guy that's just as consistent as Hellebuyck, I think if they get into the playoffs, it'll be largely on his shoulders. So I'm going to say Hellebuyck, but again, like there's some, when you've got the likes of Saros, Sorokin, Shesterkin, Ottinger, it's a tough competition.
You know what's funny too is like a lot of these teams that we're picking to be top of the division, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Kings, the Oilers, all question marks in that, right? Mm-hmm. It's like we don't even know who's going to be playing a majority of these games. So you have to kind of look at the goaltenders that are going to get the majority of work. And I like the Hellebuyck pick. I didn't pick the Jets to make the playoffs, so I'm going to refrain from picking Hellebuyck. But I don't know. I feel like if he has a full healthy season, this team's going to be great. I think Freddie Anderson can run away with the Vezina Trophy. Yeah,
I love it.
It's just
he's got to stay healthy.
Yeah, exactly. It's always been health with him.
Trapper gets it. Vitek Vanacek, he gets it.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of look at sometimes this Vezina pick is always based off of how good the team is. We just talked about last year with the
Omar.
Yeah, with Omar. It's just they won a lot of games just because they're good, and it wasn't because their goaltending was great, but their goaltending was great because they were so good. And that's kind of the reasoning behind my Freddie Anderson pick is you're talking about a Carolina Hurricanes team that's never going to give up a lot in terms of high danger chances. So if Freddie Anderson could just be Freddie Anderson, then he should end up winning a majority of the games, if not winning the most games in the NHL, and then maybe walking away with the Vezina Trophy.
I love it. And shoot, talk about somebody you could put some long odds on and win a few bucks on. Okay, we've come to the end, Russ. Hart Trophy. Who's the MVP of the National Hockey League?
MVP of the National Hockey League. Man,
you mentioned a name earlier that I regrettably didn't write down, but I like the shout.
You thinking Jack Hughes? Is that
after you said that? It's not down, but boy, I love that. I love that thought.
It's just like Connor McDavid is going to have a 170 plus point season, and you're not going to be able to not vote, or you're going to have to vote for him to win the Hart Trophy. It's just going to be like that. That's I guess unfortunate coming from a Kings fan, but it's just that's the way the NHL works. And yeah, I guess he would deserve it at that point.
Yes,
because I think McDavid, as unfortunate it is to hear for Kings fans, I think we're going to see another level to his game this year, which is going to suck in the Pacific. But man, but the thing is, I will say too, though, I don't get the hype over Connor Brown. I think there's a little too much there. I like the signing.
Yeah.
There's too much hype going around him. This guy, I don't think he's never even scored 20 goals. Maybe he has once in his career, but I don't. But anyway, I just think McDavid is just gonna have a ridiculous tear of a season this year.
That's who I have. I have McDavid, and that's not a slight to McKinnon or Hughes. I like the Connor Brown signing, but I agree. Like I think you can like the signing without going too overboard. Like I do think but I will say maybe what makes it so attractive is for a team that needs all the depth it can get and cheap depth it can get. Maybe that's what makes him even more attractive and I think the fact that he played with McDavid in junior, there's always that connection.
Dude, I've heard that like 100 times. Like,
what have you heard more of that or what I can't remember where Trevor Morris from.
So true. Yeah. But it's so funny. Like, oh, we played with Connor Brown played with McDavid and juniors. They're going to be so good. Like, okay,
8 years ago.
It was like 8 years ago. It's like, let's chill out here a little bit.
I'll say this though. Like I mentioned Jack Eichel earlier. So remember a couple of years ago, he got hurt. He was banged up in Buffalo, had the surgery, was banged up when he got back at the end of this Vegas. Last year, he had some injury issues too. Like this is, I think, the first year he's entering a season full health, ready to go. And man, he was dominant in playoffs. And if he can put together an 80-game season, Jack Eichel is going to make a lot of noise this year.
I'll go with another American, Matthew Tkachuk.
Yep.
If that team and a lot of the injuries that they're dealing with, if they somehow make the playoffs and he has another year like he had last year, man, I mean, I think Tkachuk is a top 5 player. He's
awesome. I think like some of the shine has worn off of Austin Matthews for some reason, but boy, is that dude good. If he could score 60 with easily. So it's just I'm so happy hockey's back, Russ. It's
right.
The only thing that would be better, and we haven't, and it is my fault as sitting in for the host is when Randon gets back. I don't know if he'll be back with us next week, and I don't know. We'll see about when our next show is going to be, whether it's later this week or next week. We'll figure that out. But he is still gallivanting across Europe. We hope he's doing well. We do look forward to having him back though, and manning the hot seat. That's for sure. But Russ, we put one together here. This was pushing 2 hours.
Hey,
we put one together.
Season's tomorrow, man. We're here. I think it was worth it.
Shankmaster comes in. Randon. That's a low blow, Shankmaster. That's a low blow. We didn't need it.
Shankmaster, I love Shank.
Love it. No, and fellas, we had a lot of people come in on the chat, and I got to say, I'm going to give myself some credit because I checked the likes after, where it was half the people that were in here had liked it. Now we're over 30 likes at last check. I think. So that's what we're talking about.
Marketing goes a long way.
Absolutely. Hey, Noah. Oh, where's Noah? Right here. You guys crushed it. Thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Noah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, bud.
Amazing. RB, much fun. King's Rule. This was a fun show. It was a fun show. I had a lot of fun, a lot to talk about. So this was good. We'll do more. And guys, the season starts. We'll be doing some live streams. Or live streams, excuse me, like live watch parties, I should say, where we'll kick in, we'll watch the games, we'll have some fun chatting about the games as we're watching. We did that a few times last year. People seem to like it. So,
hey, we're undefeated in that too. By the way,
I think we are.
We are undefeated.
That's right. That's right.
So
in Colorado, we've beaten. I think we've beaten Colorado twice.
Colorado twice and Philadelphia once.
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Have fun. Enjoy the Kings game tomorrow, obviously, and everybody much appreciated that joined in on the chat today. The chat was buzzing. You guys have been great. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. For those that don't know, I remembered to put it on the ticker this time, Russ. It has been scrolling across the bottom. Hockey Royalty is at hockey_royalty on Twitter. Rando Commando 24 at NHL Russell at JW Paterino, and at Kopitar 4HOF is Kyle Garcia, who's doing a great job covering the rain. Talk about a team that should be buzzing. We'll have to have Kyle on a lot this year to talk about the rain. They're going to look dynamite. So, Russ, hell of a show, man. Thank you.
You too, bud.
Good show. Back at it. King season is underway. Thank you for everybody joining in. And hey, it's about that time. Go Kings, go.